The lecture hall was filled with noise as students talked among themselves. Some were arguing about what Jisoo had said. Others were looking up information on their tablets to verify his claims. The atmosphere in the room had changed completely. What had started as a lesson about genetic purity had turned into something much more. Interesting, Jisoo was about to return to his seat when a loud voice cut through the noise. "This is absurd." Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. It came from a large student sitting in the back row. His name was Korath, and he was from a warrior species called the Veldari. He was nearly 3 meters tall, with dark purple skin and massive shoulders. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their strength and their pride. They believed that they were the most powerful species in existence, and they did not like it when others challenged that belief. Korath stood up from his seat. The floor seemed to shake slightly under his weight. His eyes were fixed on Jisoo with open hostility. "You expect us to believe that weakness is strength," Korath said, his voice dripping with contempt. "You expect us to believe that contaminated DNA is better than pure DNA? This is the thinking of a primitive species that cannot accept its own inferiority." The room became very quiet. Everyone was watching to see how Jisoo would respond. Jisoo did not move. He stood at the front of the room, his hands relaxed at his sides. He had dealt with bullies before, both on Earth and at the Academy. He knew that the worst thing he could do was show fear. "I am not saying that weakness is strength," Jisoo said calmly. "I am saying that what you call weakness is actually something else entirely." Korath laughed. It was a harsh, mocking sound. "Your species cannot survive in cold weather without clothing. You cannot see in the dark. You cannot run fast or jump high. You are fragile. One blow from my fist would break every bone in your body." "That is probably true," Jisoo admitted. "In a direct physical fight, you would defeat me easily. But survival is not just about physical strength." "Then what is it about human?" Korath demanded. "Please, enlighten us with your primitive wisdom." Jisoo took a slow breath. He knew that Korath was trying to make him angry. He knew that if he lost his temper, he would lose the respect of everyone in the room. So he kept his voice steady and his expression calm. "Let me tell you about the viral DNA in our bodies," Jisoo said. "Not just the general facts, but the specific benefits it gives us." He pulled up new information on the holographic screen. First, there is a gene called syncytin. It comes from an ancient retrovirus. This gene allows human mothers to create a placenta during pregnancy. Without it, human babies could not develop properly inside the womb. Our entire method of reproduction depends on this viral gene. Korath crossed his massive arms over his chest. "Reproduction is not strength. Every species reproduces." "True," Jisoo said. "But the way humans reproduce allows our babies to develop larger brains before birth. Our children are born with more advanced neural connections than almost any other species in the galaxy. That is why humans are so good at learning, adapting, and solving problems." He pressed another button and a new image appeared. Next, there is a group of genes called HFY. These also come from ancient retroviruses. They help regulate our immune system. When a new pathogen enters our body, these viral genes help our immune cells recognize the threat and respond more quickly. A student near the middle of the room spoke up. "But other species have immune systems too. What makes yours special?" "Good question," Jisoo said. "The answer is adaptability. Most species have immune systems that are very good at fighting specific types of threats. But they struggle when they encounter something completely new. Human immune systems are different. Because of our viral DNA, we can adapt to new threats much more quickly. Our bodies essentially remember how to fight every virus that ever infected our ancestors. He turned to face Korath directly. Your species, the Valdari, is known for being strong and healthy. Your genetic code is almost perfectly pure. But let me ask you a question. 300 years ago, there was a plague that swept through the Valdari homeworld. How many of your people died? Korath's expression darkened. He did not answer. Velith spoke up instead. The historical records show that the Valdari lost approximately 60% of their population during that plague. It was one of the worst disasters in their history. Jisoo nodded. 60%. More than half of your entire species died. And why? Because your pure, uncontaminated DNA could not adapt quickly enough to the new disease. The room was completely silent. Korath's hands had clenched into fists at his sides. Now let me tell you about humans, Jisoo continued. About 100 years ago, a new virus appeared on Earth. It was called COVID-19. It spread across the entire planet in just a few months. Scientists predicted that it could kill hundreds of millions of people. He paused. Do you know how many humans actually died from that virus? Nobody answered. Less than 1% of our population, Jisoo said. And within 2 years, our scientists had developed vaccines that made the virus almost harmless. Our bodies adapted. Our immune systems learned. And the viral DNA in our genome helped make that possible. Korath was silent now. His fists were still clenched, but some of the hostility had left his eyes. It had been replaced by something else. Something that might have been doubt. There is more, Jisoo said. The viral DNA in human bodies also affects our brains. Some of these ancient genes help with neuroplasticity. That means our brains can form new connections more easily than most other species. We learn faster. We adapt to new situations more quickly. We can solve problems that other species find impossible. He walked slowly toward Korath, stopping about 3 meters away from the massive Valdari. You are right that I am physically weak compared to you. One punch from you could probably kill me. But if we were placed on a new planet with unknown dangers, which one of us do you think would survive longer? Korath said nothing. Humans have survived ice ages, Jisoo said. We have survived plagues, famines, and natural disasters. We have survived wars that killed millions of our own people. And every time, we came back stronger than before. Not because we are physically powerful, but because our bodies know how to adapt. Because the viral DNA in our genome gives us the ability to change and grow in ways the pure species cannot. Hannah, the Orvian student, spoke up from the front row. What about mental abilities? You mentioned neuroplasticity. Does the viral DNA affect human thinking in other ways? Jisoo turned to face her. Yes, it does. Some researchers believe that certain viral genes in the human brain are connected to creativity. They help us think in new ways and imagine things that do not exist yet. They might be part of the reason why humans developed art, music, and literature. He smiled slightly. They might also be part of the reason why humans are so stubborn, so unwilling to give up, so determined to survive no matter what. Korath finally spoke again. His voice was quieter now, less aggressive. You speak well, human, but words are not the same as actions. How do we know that what you say is true? Jisoo nodded. That is a fair question. And I think Instructor Velith might have an answer for you. Everyone turned to look at Velith, who had been watching the exchange with great interest. The instructor nodded slowly and walked toward the holographic screen. The human speaks the truth, Velith said. I have verified his claims against the Galactic database. Everything he has said about viral DNA and human survival rates is accurate. He pressed a button and new data appeared on the screen. In fact, I have found something even more interesting. The Galactic Medical Council has been studying human DNA for the past 10 years. Their preliminary conclusion is that human biology may hold the key to developing new treatments for diseases that have killed billions of beings across the galaxy. The room erupted in surprised whispers. Jisoo felt a warm feeling spread through his chest. He had come to the academy to represent humanity, and now, for the first time, he felt like he had truly succeeded. The lecture had ended, but nobody wanted to leave. Students gathered in small groups throughout the hall, discussing what they had learned. Some were reviewing the data on their tablets. Others were having animated conversations about human biology and what it meant for the future of the galaxy. The usual rush to leave the classroom was completely absent. Jisoo sat in his chair, feeling exhausted but satisfied. He had not planned to give a speech today. He had just wanted to correct a misunderstanding about his species. But somehow, that small act had turned into something much bigger. Instructor Velith approached him. The tall, gray-skinned being looked at Jisoo with an expression that was very different from the one he had worn at the beginning of class. "Student Jisoo," Velith said, "I owe you an apology." Jisoo looked up in surprise. "An apology, Instructor?" Velith nodded slowly. "When I prepared this lesson, I included human DNA as an example of impurity. I believed that the viral contamination in your genome was a sign of primitive evolution. I was wrong." He placed one of his 4 hands on Jisoo's shoulder. "I have been teaching at this academy for over 200 years. In all that time, I do not think any student has ever taught me as much as you taught me today." Jisoo felt warmth spread through his chest. "Thank you, Instructor. That means a lot to me." Velith smiled, which was a rare expression for his species. "I will be revising my curriculum to include the truth about human genetics. Future students will learn that diversity and adaptation are just as important as purity and strength." As Velith walked away, another figure approached Jisoo. It was Hana, the Orvian student with silver skin and violet eyes. She sat down in the empty chair next to him. "That was incredible," she said softly. "I have never seen anything like that." Jisoo smiled tiredly. "I did not plan for it to happen. I just could not stay silent while my species was being misunderstood." Hana nodded. "That is what impressed me the most. You were not showing off or trying to prove that humans are better than everyone else. You were just telling the truth." She paused, looking at him with those large violet eyes. "On my homeworld, we value purity above all else. Our genetic code has been carefully protected for millions of years. We eliminate any foreign DNA immediately. We believe that is what makes us advanced. And now?" Jisoo asked Hana aside. "Now I am not so sure." The survival statistics that Instructor Velith showed were very troubling. "My species has suffered many plagues throughout our history. We always believed that was just bad luck. But maybe it was because we are too pure, too fragile." Jisoo thought carefully before responding. "I do not think purity is bad," he said. "Every species evolves in its own way. The Orvians have developed incredible technologies and built a peaceful civilization. Those are achievements that humans can only dream of. But you survive," Hana said. "No matter what happens, you survive. That is something my species has never been able to do consistently." They sat in silence for a moment, watching as other students continued their discussions around the room. Koreth, the Valdari warrior, was now surrounded by a group of students who were asking him questions about his species' history. He seemed less hostile now, more thoughtful. "May I ask you a personal question?" Hana said. Jisoo nodded. "Of course. How does it feel to carry enemies inside your body?" Hana asked. "To know that 8% of your DNA comes from viruses that tried to kill your ancestors. Does it not bother you?" Jisoo considered the question carefully. It was something he had thought about many times since learning about human genetics in school. When I was young, he said, I used to think it was strange. I wondered why humans were so different from other species. Why our DNA was so messy and complicated. But as I grew older, I began to see it differently. He looked at Hana with a smile. Those viruses are not my enemies anymore. They are part of me. Part of who I am. The battles they fought with my ancestors are over, and we won. Now their power belongs to us. Hana's eyes widened slightly. You think of them as conquered enemies? As prisoners of war inside your own body? Jisoo laughed softly. I think of them as family, actually. Strange, ancient family members who have been with us for millions of years. They tried to destroy us once, but now they protect us. They help us survive. That is a beautiful way to think about it, Hana said quietly. The door of the lecture hall opened, and a group of older students walked in. They were members of the Academy's Research Council, and they were heading straight toward Jisoo. The leader of the group was a tall being with blue skin and multiple eyes. His name was Instructor Teo, and he was in charge of the Academy's Biological Research Department. Student Jisoo, Teo said, I have just received word of what happened in Instructor Vella's class today. I would like to speak with you about a research opportunity. Jisoo stood up, surprised. A research opportunity? Teo nodded. The Galactic Medical Council has been studying human DNA for years, but they have had difficulty understanding how the viral genes interact with the rest of your genome. They need human researchers to help them. He looked at Jisoo with his multiple eyes. We would like you to join our research team. Your understanding of human biology could help us develop treatments that save billions of lives across the galaxy. Jisoo felt his heart beat faster. This was more than he had ever hoped for when he came to the Academy. He had wanted to represent humanity well, but now he was being offered a chance to actually help the galaxy. I would be honored, he said. Tael nodded and handed Jisoo a data tablet. Report to the research center tomorrow morning. We have much work to do. As the research council left the hall, Hana looked at Jisoo with a proud smile. You came here as a student, and now you are going to help save the galaxy. Not bad for a species with contaminated DNA. Jisoo laughed. We prefer to call it enhanced DNA. Korath approached them, his massive form casting a shadow over their seats. But there was no hostility in his posture now. Instead, he stood before Jisoo with something like respect in his eyes. Human, Korath said. I was wrong about your species. You are not weak. You are strong in ways that I did not understand. Jisoo stood and faced the Voldari warrior. And I was wrong to think that strength only comes from survival. Your people have power and courage that humans admire. Maybe we can learn from each other. Korath nodded slowly. Maybe we can. He extended his massive hand again, and Jisoo shook it. This time, the handshake lasted longer. It felt like the beginning of something new. As the three of them walked out of the lecture hall together, Jisoo thought about everything that had happened. He had come to the academy expecting to be judged and dismissed. Instead, he had found understanding and respect. He had shown the galaxy that humans were not inferior or primitive. They were survivors, adapters, and innovators. And the 8% of viral DNA that other species saw as contamination, that was not a weakness at all. It was a gift from their ancestors. A reminder that humans had fought countless battles and won every single one. A promise that no matter what the future held, humanity would survive. Hana walked beside him, her silver skin glowing softly in the light of the corridor. Where do we go from here? She asked. Jisoo smiled and looked up at the stars visible through the crystal walls of the academy. Forward, he said. Always forward. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers. But humanity had faced dangers before. They had absorbed their enemies, learned from their mistakes, and grown stronger with each generation. And now, finally, the rest of the galaxy was beginning to understand what that meant. Humans were not pure. They were not clean. But they were unbreakable. And that made all the difference. Instructor Velith stood at the center of the lecture hall, his forearms moving gracefully as he manipulated the holographic display. The data he was showing made the room fall into complete silence. Even Korath, the proud Valdari warrior, was staring at the screen with his mouth slightly open. These are the official survival statistics compiled by the Galactic Council over the past 10,000 years, Velith explained. They track how different species have responded to biological threats, including plagues, bioweapons, and naturally occurring diseases. The screen showed a long list of species names, each with a number next to it. The numbers represented extinction rates due to biological causes. As you can see, Velith continued, the average extinction rate for spacefaring species is approximately 42%. That means that out of every 100 species that develop space travel, 42 will eventually go extinct due to some form of biological disaster. A student near the front raised a tentacle. What about species with pure genetic codes? Surely they have better survival rates? Velith shook his head slowly. That is what I always believed as well. But the data tells a different story. He highlighted a section of the list that showed species known for their genetic purity. The Orvians, the Valdari, the Kelthari. The extinction rates for these species range from 35 to 50%. Species with pure genetic codes are actually more vulnerable to biological threats, Velith said. His voice carried a note of surprise, as if he was still processing this information himself. Their lack of genetic diversity makes them less adaptable. When a new pathogen appears, they often cannot evolve quickly enough to survive. Then Velith highlighted another section of the list. It showed species with high levels of genetic diversity, including some that carried foreign DNA from viruses and other sources. These species have much lower extinction rates, Velith said. Some as low as 10%. Their genetic diversity gives them natural resistance to a wide range of threats. He pressed another button, and a single name appeared on the screen in large letters. Humans. The human extinction rate due to biological causes, Velith announced, is currently 3.2%. The lowest of any spacefaring species in recorded galactic history. The room erupted in noise. Students were talking, shouting, and asking questions all at once. Some looked shocked. Some looked impressed. A few looked angry, as if they did not want to believe what they were seeing. Jisoo remained standing at the front of the room, watching the chaos with a calm expression. He had suspected that the numbers would be impressive, but even he was surprised by how low the human extinction rate actually was. Korath pushed his way through the crowd toward Velith. This cannot be correct, he said. Humans have only been in space for less than a century. There is not enough data to make these claims. The data is accurate, Velith replied. The Galactic Council does not only track extinction events. They also track survival rates during major biological incidents. Humans have already faced several significant outbreaks since joining the galactic community, and their survival rate has been remarkable. He pulled up a specific example. 47 years ago, a deadly virus escaped from a research station near the Valdari homeworld. It spread to 17 different planets before it was contained. Over 2 billion beings died. Velith pointed to a section of the data. On the human colony of New Sol, the virus infected approximately 80,000 people. Do you know how many of them died? Nobody answered. 12, Velith said. 12 humans died out of 80,000 infected. That is a survival rate of 99.98%. Korath stared at the screen. His purple face had become slightly pale. How is that possible? Jisoo stepped forward. The virus that killed billions of other beings was similar to viruses that humans had fought before. Our immune systems recognized parts of it and responded quickly. Within weeks, our bodies had developed natural antibodies. Within months, our scientists had created a vaccine. Hannah, the Orvian student, looked at Jisoo with something like awe in her violet eyes. Your species turned a deadly plague into nothing more than a minor illness? Not the first time we have done that, Jisoo said. And probably not the last. Velith continued his demonstration. He showed data from multiple biological incidents across the galaxy. In every case where humans were present, their survival rates were dramatically higher than other species. And in many cases, it was human scientists who developed the treatments and vaccines that saved everyone else. There is one more piece of data I want to show you, Velith said. This is perhaps the most important of all. He pressed a button and a new chart appeared on the screen. It showed the genetic sequences of various species, with certain sections highlighted in different colors. The red sections represent foreign genetic material, Velith explained. DNA that came from viruses, bacteria, or other external sources. As you can see, most species have very little foreign DNA. The Orvians have less than 1%. The Valdari have less than 0.5%. He pointed to the human genetic sequence at the bottom of the chart. It was covered in red highlights. Humans have 8% foreign DNA, Velith said. The highest of any known spacefaring species. For centuries, the galactic community has viewed this as a flaw, a sign of primitive evolution. But now we are beginning to understand that this contamination is actually one of humanity's greatest advantages. Jisoo nodded. Every red section on that chart represents a battle that our ancestors fought and won. Every piece of viral DNA is a trophy from an enemy we defeated long ago. And those trophies now protect us from threats that other species cannot even imagine. A student from the back of the room called out, "If human DNA is so special, can it be shared with other species? Can you give us the same advantages?" Velith and Jisoo exchanged a glance. This was a sensitive topic, one that humans and the Galactic Council had been discussing for years. That is complicated, Jisoo said carefully. Human DNA evolved over millions of years. The viral genes in our bodies are integrated into our entire biological system. They cannot simply be copied and pasted into another species. However, Velith added, the Galactic Medical Council has been studying human DNA to understand how it works. They believe that some of the principles behind human genetic adaptation could be applied to other species, not by directly copying human DNA, but by developing new medical treatments based on human biology. Hannah leaned forward in her seat. So humans might help other species become more resistant to biological threats? Jisoo smiled. That is the hope. Humans came to the galactic community as the youngest and weakest species. But maybe we have something to offer after all. Korath was standing quietly now, his massive arms hanging at his sides. The hostility had completely left his face. He looked thoughtful, even troubled. I have been taught my entire life that the Valdari are the strongest species in the galaxy, he said slowly, that our pure genetics make us superior to all others. But now I see that there are different kinds of strength. He looked directly at Jisoo. Your species is small and fragile, but you carry inside you the weapons of 1,000,000 battles. You have turned your enemies into shields that protect you from harm. Jisoo nodded respectfully. And your species has strength that humans will never have. The galaxy is better because it has both of us in it. For a long moment, the two of them just looked at each other. Then, slowly, Korath extended one massive hand toward Jisoo. It was a gesture of respect among the Voldari. Similar to a human handshake, Jisoo reached out and placed his small hand in Korath's enormous palm. They shook once. Firmly. The room burst into applause. Jisoo stood in front of over 500 alien students. His heart was beating fast, but he did not let it show on his face. He had spent his whole life preparing for moments like this. Back on Earth, he had studied biology, history, and languages. He had trained his body and his mind. He had passed every test the United Nations had given him. And now he was here, at the Galactic Academy, ready to show the universe what humans were capable of. Millions of years ago, Jisoo said, our planet was a very dangerous place. There were viruses everywhere. Tiny creatures that could not be seen with the naked eye. They invaded the bodies of our ancestors and made them sick. Many died. Whole populations were wiped out. The holographic screen behind him showed images of ancient Earth, dense jungles, primitive creatures. It was a world very different from the one humans lived on now. Other species in the galaxy faced similar challenges, Jisoo continued. But most of them found ways to purge the viral DNA from their bodies. They saw it as contamination. Something bad. Something that needed to be removed. Velith nodded slowly. That is correct. Most advanced species develop biological systems that identify and eliminate foreign genetic material. It is a sign of evolutionary progress. But humans did something different, Jisoo said. We did not just fight the viruses. We absorbed them. We took their genetic code and made it part of ourselves. A student in the back of the room raised a tentacle. Why would any species do that? It sounds like you are saying humans welcomed the contamination. Jisoo smiled. It was not a choice we made consciously. It happened naturally, over millions of years. But the result was incredible. The viral DNA gave us new abilities. New powers that we would not have had otherwise. The room was completely silent now. Every student was listening. Even Velith had uncrossed his arms and was leaning forward slightly. Let me give you an example, Jisoo said. One of the most important things that makes humans special is how our mothers carry babies inside their bodies. The babies grow for 9 months before they are born. This is possible because of a special organ called the placenta. It connects the mother to the baby and provides food and oxygen. He pointed to the red section on the screen that showed viral DNA. The gene that allows human mothers to create a placenta comes from a virus, an ancient retrovirus that infected our ancestors over 100 million years ago. Without that viral gene, human mothers could not carry babies the way they do. Our species might not even exist. A murmur went through the crowd. Jisoo saw Hana, the Orvian student in the front row, writing something quickly on her tablet. Her violet eyes were wide with interest. That is just one example, Jisoo said. There are many more. Some viral genes help our immune system fight diseases. Others help our brains grow and develop. Some even help us adapt to new environments more quickly than other species can. Velith raised one of his 4 hands. This is interesting, student Jisoo, but surely there are also disadvantages to carrying so much viral DNA? Surely some of that contamination causes problems for your species. Jisoo nodded. You are right, Instructor. Some of the viral DNA does cause problems. Some of it is linked to diseases like cancer. But here is the important thing. The benefits far outweigh the risks. And over time, our bodies have learned to control the dangerous parts while keeping the useful parts active. He paused and looked around the room. Humans are not pure. Our genetic code is messy. It is full of pieces from viruses that tried to kill us long ago. But that is not a weakness. That is our greatest strength. Another student spoke up. This one was a tall being with metallic skin and glowing eyes. You speak of strength, human. But your species is young and fragile. You cannot survive in extreme temperatures. You cannot breathe underwater. You cannot even fly without machines. How can you call yourself strong? Jisoo had expected this question. You are right that humans have many physical limitations. But strength is not just about what your body can do. It is about what your species can survive. He turned to the holographic screen and pressed a button on his tablet. New images appeared. Images of plagues and pandemics that had swept through human history. The Black Death, smallpox, influenza, COVID. In our history, Jisoo said, humans have faced dozens of deadly diseases. Plagues that killed millions of people. Viruses that spread across the entire planet. Each time, scientists predicted that humanity might go extinct. Each time, they were wrong. He pointed to a graph that showed human population over time. After every plague, human population not only recovered, but grew stronger. Our immune systems learned from each disease. Our bodies adapted. And yes, some of that adaptation came from the viral DNA that other species would have eliminated. Velith was watching Jisoo with a new expression now. It was not the look of a teacher correcting a student. It was the look of someone who was genuinely learning something new. There is another thing you should understand, Jisoo said. Humans do not just carry viral DNA passively. We use it. Our scientists have learned to study these ancient viral genes and understand how they work. We use that knowledge to create new medicines and treatments. We even use it to modify our own DNA and make ourselves stronger. Hannah raised her hand. Her voice was soft but clear. Are you saying that humans have turned their enemies into tools? Jisoo looked at her and nodded. That is exactly what I am saying. Every virus that tried to kill us left a piece of itself behind. And we took those pieces and made them part of who we are. We turned our enemies into allies. Not through friendship or diplomacy, but through biology itself. The room erupted in whispers and conversations. Jisoo could hear students discussing what he had said in dozens of different languages. Some sounded skeptical. Some sounded impressed. Some sounded confused, but Jisoo was not finished yet. There's one more thing I want to show you, he said, raising his voice slightly to be heard over the noise. The room quieted down again. 8% of human DNA comes from viruses, Jisoo said. That is a fact. But there is another number that is even more important. He pressed another button on his tablet. A new statistic appeared on the screen. In the history of the galaxy, Jisoo said, over 40% of species that developed space travel eventually went extinct. Most of them were wiped out by plagues or biological weapons. Their pure, clean genetic codes could not adapt fast enough to new threats. He paused and let that sink in. Humans have been in space for less than a century, he continued. We are the youngest species in this room. But our survival rate against biological threats is over 97%. That is the highest in the entire galaxy. The room was completely silent now. Jisoo could see that even the most skeptical students were thinking about what he had said. Other species purged their viral DNA because they thought it was contamination, Jisoo said. But in doing so, they made themselves fragile. They created genetic codes that were pure, but also brittle. When new threats appeared, they could not adapt fast enough. He looked directly at Velith. Humans are not pure. We are not clean. But we are survivors. And that 8% of viral DNA is one of the main reasons why. Velith was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he uncrossed his arms and nodded. Thank you, Student Jisoo, he said. That was most educational. The Galactic Academy stood at the center of the universe. It was a place where the smartest minds from thousands of worlds came to learn. The building was bigger than most cities on Earth. Its walls were made of white crystal that glowed softly in the endless night of space. Students from every corner of the galaxy walked through its halls. Some had 6 legs. Some floated in the air. Some were made of pure energy. But they all came here for one reason. They wanted to learn about the universe and all the life in it. Jisoo walked into the lecture, all on the morning of his 3rd week at the academy. He was 24 years old, with short black hair and tired eyes. He had not slept well the night before. The bed in his room was designed for a species that did not have a spine, and he still had not figured out how to make it comfortable. But he did not complain. He was the first human to ever attend the Galactic Academy, and he knew that billions of people back on Earth were counting on him to represent humanity well. The lecture hall was enormous. It could hold over 500 students, and today it was almost full. Jisoo found his usual seat near the middle of the room. He sat down and placed his small tablet on the desk in front of him. He looked around at his classmates. To his left sat a being made of blue crystals. Its name was something Jisoo could not pronounce, so he just called it Blue in his mind. To his right sat an empty chair. The student who usually sat there was a gas-based life form, and it had trouble keeping solid form in the morning dot at the front of the room. The instructor was preparing the lesson. Instructor Velith was a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms. He had large black eyes that seemed to see everything at once. He was over 300 years old and had taught at the academy for most of his life. He was known for being strict but fair. Jisoo respected him, even though Velith sometimes looked at humans with a strange expression that Jisoo could not understand. Today's lesson was about genetics. The holographic screen behind Velith lit up with beautiful images of DNA. Strands from different species. Jisoo watched with interest as Velith showed the genetic code of the Orvians, a peaceful species known for their perfect health. Their DNA was clean and organized, like a well-written book. Then Velith showed the DNA of the Kelthari, a warrior species with incredible strength. Their genetic code was also clean, with every gene serving a clear purpose. As you can see, Velith said, his voice calm and measured, the most advanced species in the galaxy share a common trait. Their genetic code is pure. There is no waste, no confusion, no contamination. This is the mark of a species that has evolved properly. Jisoo felt a small knot form in his stomach. He had a feeling he knew where this lesson was going. Velith pressed a button and a new image appeared on the screen. It was human DNA. Jisoo recognized it immediately. But something was different about how Velith displayed it. Parts of the genetic code were highlighted in red, as if they were problems that needed to be fixed. This, Velith said slowly, is the genetic code of humanity, our newest member of the galactic community. The room became very quiet. Jisoo could feel hundreds of eyes turning to look at him. He kept his face calm and looked straight ahead at the screen. Notice the red sections, Velith continued. These are areas of the human genome that contain foreign genetic material. Specifically, these sections come from viruses. Ancient viruses that infected humanity's ancestors millions of years ago. A murmur went through the crowd. Jisoo heard whispers in languages he did not understand. But the tone was clear. Surprise, confusion, maybe even disgust. Approximately 8% of the human genome is made of viral DNA, Velith explained. This is highly unusual. Most species eliminate foreign genetic material through natural selection. It is seen as contamination, a weakness, something that should be removed over time. Jisoo felt his heart beat faster. He understood what Velith was saying. The instructor was calling human DNA impure, dirty, wrong. But Jisoo also knew something that Velith did not seem to understand. He raised his hand. Velith paused and looked at him. Yes, Student Jisoo? Instructor, Jisoo said, keeping his voice steady. May I ask a question about the viral DNA? Velith nodded. Of course. That is why we are here. To learn. You said that most species eliminate foreign genetic material, Jisoo said. But humans kept it. 8% of our DNA comes from viruses we fought millions of years ago. My question is this. Why do you think we kept it? The room became silent again. This time, the silence felt different. It was not the silence of judgment. It was the silence of curiosity. Velith blinked his large black eyes. I assume it is because humanity did not have the biological tools to remove it. Your species is young, only a few 100,000 years old. You simply have not had time to purify your genetic code. Jisoo shook his head slowly. With respect, Instructor, I do not think that is correct. A gasp went through the crowd. Challenging an instructor was not something students did lightly at the Galactic Academy. But Jisoo had not come all this way to stay silent while his species was misunderstood. We did not keep the viral DNA because we could not remove it, Jisoo said. We kept it because it made us stronger. Velith's 4 arms crossed over his chest. His expression was hard to read, but Jisoo thought he saw a flicker of interest in those dark eyes. That is an interesting claim, Velith said. Perhaps you would like to explain it to the class? Jisoo stood up from his seat. His legs felt a little shaky, but his voice was strong. I would be happy to, Instructor. He looked around the room at all the alien faces watching him. Some looked confused. Some looked annoyed. But a few looked genuinely curious. In the front row, he noticed a female student with silver skin and large violet eyes. Her name was Hana, and she was from a species called the Orvians. She was leaning forward in her seat, her eyes fixed on Jisoo with what looked like real interest. Jisoo took a deep breath. This was his chance to show the galaxy what humanity was really made of. On Earth, he began, we have a saying, what does not kill you makes you stronger. And that is exactly what happened with the viruses in our DNA.